I'm 92 years old, and there's something I need to tell you right now. Before you go any further down the path you believe is right, you might be living your entire life the wrong way and still think you're doing everything correctly. I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying it because I've lived long enough to watch people push forward with everything they have, only to realize far too late that what they were chasing could never fill what was missing inside them. I was one of those people. If you had met me decades ago, you wouldn't think I'd be sitting here saying things like this. Back then, I believed in discipline. I believed in strength. I believed a man had to endure, had to keep moving, had to carry his own weight without leaning on anyone else. I believed that if I was strong enough, capable enough, relentless enough, one day life would reward me with peace. I believed that for far too long. Long enough that I didn't even realize I had given most of my life to a promise that was never real. Maybe you're telling yourself something similar right now. I'll be okay when. I'll be happy when. I'll finally feel at ease when. When I make more money. When I get a better job. When I have a better house. When people respect me. When I finally become someone. Those thoughts sound reasonable. They sound like motivation. They sound like maturity. They sound like you have direction. But sometimes, the most reasonable thoughts are the ones that quietly destroy your life. Because that when never ends. You reach one point, and your mind immediately creates the next. You earn enough, then you start fearing you'll lose it. You get a good position, then you feel like it's still not enough. You build a family, then you worry it's not stable enough. You find stability, then something inside you still feels incomplete. So you keep going. Faster, harder, longer, until one day you look back and realize you spent most of your life preparing to live without ever actually living. I know that feeling. I know it better than I wish I did. For a long time, I thought my problem was my circumstances. I believed that if I could build a more stable life, secure a better future, create something solid, then whatever was unsettled inside me would finally calm down. I thought the anxiety would fade. I thought the tension would disappear. I thought the quiet emptiness I carried in my chest would eventually go away if I just did things right. But it never did. It just changed form. When I was young, it was the fear of being nothing. When I got older, it became the fear of failing. When I had more, it turned into the fear of losing it. And as I aged, It became the fear of facing the truth that I had spent too many years chasing things that could never heal me. That's the part no one tells you when you're young. No one teaches you that some races are designed so you never actually reach the finish line. No one tells you that some things, the more you chase them, the hungrier you feel. No one warns you that you can spend decades building a life that looks strong on the outside, only to discover that inside, the foundation was empty all along. I didn't start out thinking this way. I didn't just become this person overnight. The way I lived was built piece by piece through what I saw, what I lost, and what I had to learn just to survive. Some things happen so early in life that a boy, before he even understands the world, decides he has to become stronger than anything that could ever hurt him. I lived almost my entire life by that belief that I had to be stronger, harder, more controlled, more disciplined. Because if I ever stopped, I would have to feel. And feeling was something I learned to avoid a long time ago. Maybe that's why you keep yourself so busy. Maybe you call it ambition. Maybe you call it responsibility. Maybe you call it building your future. And sometimes that's true. But sometimes, behind all those respectable names, there's an old fear you've never sat down and faced. The fear that you're not enough. The fear that you're not worthy of being loved. The fear that if you don't become something significant, your life won't matter. The fear that if you stop moving, you'll finally hear the emptiness inside you. I don't know what you're running from, but I know what it feels like to spend a lifetime thinking you're running towards something, when in reality, you're just running away. And the hardest part isn't the exhaustion. The hardest part is realizing too late that what you were looking for was never ahead of you. It was never ahead of you. What you're searching for isn't in the next paycheck, not in status, not in other people's approval, not in some future moment where everything finally feels right. If you don't learn how to be at peace with yourself, you will carry that emptiness into everything, into your work, into your relationships, into your family, into your quiet moments, into your old age. And that's how a life disappears. Busy, reasonable, full of effort, but disconnected from what actually matters. I don't want you to hear me as an old man giving advice. I want you to hear me as someone who has gone very far for a very long time and only at the end became honest enough to admit this. Some mistakes don't destroy you all at once. They take pieces of your life slowly, year by year, relationship by relationship, opportunity by opportunity, until one day the cost becomes too high to ignore. And this is only the beginning of the story, because I didn't start my life by chasing success. I started with something much deeper: fear. I didn't start my life chasing success. I started with fear. I grew up in a small town, the kind of place where everybody knew your name, but nobody really saw you. My father was a quiet man. He worked every day, hard, without complaining. His hands were rough, his back always tired, and still, people treated him like he didn't matter. I remember watching that as a boy. I didn't understand everything, but I felt it. The way people looked past him, the way they spoke over him, like he was invisible. And something inside me changed that day. I didn't say it out loud, but I made a decision. I will not live like that. I will not be invisible. That belief followed me everywhere. It became the lens I saw the world through. Then the war came. I was young, didn't have much of a choice, so I went. War doesn't just change your life. It changes the way you experience it. You see things you can't unsee. You lose people faster than you can process. You wake up one day and realize you're still alive while others aren't. And something happens to you. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly. You learn how to shut things down, how not to feel too much. Because if you do, you won't survive it. So you build walls, not around your body, but around your heart. And at first, those walls protect you. They keep you functioning. They keep you moving. But over time, those same walls become the thing that traps you. When I came back home, people kept telling me I was lucky, that I made it, that I had my whole life ahead of me. But they didn't see that a part of me never made it back. I didn't have the words for it then. I just knew something felt off. So I did what most men do. I kept moving. I stayed busy. I worked. Because staying busy is a good way to avoid yourself. I told myself, if I can just build something stable, if I can create a life that makes sense, then maybe I'll finally feel okay again. That was the beginning. Not of success, not of failure, but of a pattern that would follow me for decades. After the war, I did what most men do. I tried to build a normal life. I found a job. Nothing special, but steady. Something I could hold on to. And I worked every day. The same routine, the same hours, the same quiet determination to keep everything together. Because when you don't know how to deal with what's inside you, you learn to control what's outside. You focus on structure, on stability, on things you can measure, things that make sense. I got married. We had children. We built a life that looked right from the outside. A house, a routine, a future. If you had seen me back then, you would have said, he made it. And for a while, I believed that too. I thought this was it. This was what I had been working toward. This was what life was supposed to feel like. But something didn't sit right. It was subtle, hard to explain, like a noise in the background that never quite goes away. I was there, but I wasn't really there. I sat at the dinner table, but my mind was somewhere else. I listened, but I didn't really hear. I smiled, but it didn't reach anything real inside me. And I didn't question it, because I thought that's just how life was. You grow up. You take responsibility. You do what needs to be done. You don't stop and ask yourself how you feel. You just keep going. That's what I told myself. That this is what being a man looks like. You provide. You protect. You don't complain. You keep everything moving, no matter what's happening inside you. And I was good at that. Very good. I showed up. I worked hard. I made sure my family had what they needed. On paper, I was doing everything right. But there was something missing. Something I didn't have a name for back then. Something I couldn't fix, no matter how much effort I put in. Because the problem wasn't out there. It was in here. And I had spent years avoiding it. I didn't know how to be present. Not really. I didn't know how to sit with someone without my mind drifting away. I didn't know how to feel something without shutting it down. Because a long time ago, I had learned that feeling was dangerous. So I stayed in control, always in control. And control became the way I lived my entire life. But control has a cost. And I didn't realize what that cost was until much later. There was a night I still remember clearly, even now. It wasn't loud. There was no shouting, no big fight, just silence. The kind that feels heavy, the kind that tells you something isn't right. My wife was sitting across from me, looking at me longer than usual. And then she said something that stayed with me for the rest of my life. You're here, but you're not really here. At the time, I didn't understand. I thought, what do you mean? I'm sitting right here. I'm working every day. I'm taking care of everything. What more do you want from me? That was how I saw it. In my mind, I was doing everything right. I was providing. I was responsible. I was dependable. I was being the man I believed I was supposed to be. But to her, none of that mattered because I wasn't really there. She didn't need what I was giving. She needed me, my attention, my presence, my ability to actually feel something and share it. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't even know that was something I was missing because I had lived so long disconnected from myself that I thought this was normal. So I kept doing what I always did. I worked more. I stayed busy. I convinced myself that if I just did more, gave more, built more, everything would be okay. But it wasn't. And slowly, without either of us really noticing at first, we started drifting apart. Not all at once, just a little at a time, a little less talking, a little more distance, a little less connection, a little more silence. Until one day, you look at the person sitting across from you and realize you don't really know them anymore. That's a kind of loneliness I don't wish on anyone. Being in the same room with someone and feeling completely alone. We came close to losing everything. Closer than I ever want to remember. And the worst part was, it had nothing to do with money, nothing to do with failure, nothing to do with anything on the surface. It was something deeper, something I couldn't fix because I didn't even understand it yet. I thought the problem was out there. I thought if I just adjusted my behavior, worked a little less, tried a little harder, then things would go back to normal. But the truth was, there was no back to normal. Because what we had been living was never real connection to begin with. It was structure. It was responsibility. It was survival. But it wasn't presence. It wasn't intimacy. It wasn't real. And that's when it finally started to hit me. Not all at once, but slowly, painfully, that the way I had been living my life was costing me the very things I thought I was protecting. And by the time you start to see that clearly, you've already lost more than you ever expected. Now I'm 92 years old, and most of the people I grew up with are gone. Some didn't make it out of the war. Some made it back, but never really came home. And some just ran out of time. When you get to this age, you start to see things differently. Not because you're wiser, but because you've lost enough to finally pay attention. I've noticed something over the years. There are two kinds of people who make it this far. The first kind are still running, still chasing something, still trying to prove something, still comparing themselves to people who don't even matter. They have enough, more than enough, but it never feels like it. And you can see it in their eyes. They're tired, not physically, but inside, always waiting for something to finally make them feel okay. And it never does. Then there's the second kind. They're different, quieter, softer, more present. They're not trying to win anymore. They're not keeping score. They're just here. They sit with their coffee, watch the morning light, have real conversations, and they're at peace. And I'll tell you something that might surprise you. It has nothing to do with money, nothing to do with success, nothing to do with what they've achieved. The difference is simple. They stopped chasing. Somewhere along the way, they made peace with themselves, and everything changed after that. You want to know what real freedom feels like? It's not having everything figured out. It's not controlling your life. It's not reaching some perfect place where nothing ever goes wrong. It's this. Nothing outside of you controls how you feel inside. Because here's the trap. You think when your life gets better, you'll feel better. But that's not what happens. Your life can improve, and your mind will still find something to worry about, something to chase, something to fix, something to be afraid of. The fear doesn't go away when your life changes. It just changes targets. The only way out is to change how you relate to it, to decide that you're not going to let it run your life anymore, to decide that you are okay right now. Not when things improve, not when everything lines up, now. So listen to me carefully, because I don't say this lightly. I say this as someone who spent decades getting it wrong. You are already enough right now, exactly as you are. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to chase it. You just have to stop long enough to see it. Because everything you've been looking for was never ahead of you. It was never in the next achievement, never in the next milestone. It was always here. You just didn't know how to notice it. I learned that at the very end of my life. You still have time. Don't spend it running towards something that was already yours.